Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawk fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers, here to talk Seahawks football. Another great show for you today. Last show, we did the top 5 rankings of Seahawks players on offense, and a little bit of extra content. Today, we are doing the top 5 defensive players on the roster. And again, I brought in probably a little extra to talk about extra players. My honor.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
You didn't? So I warned you ahead of time, Keith, that we were going to do the honorable mention part of the show. I gave you a warning, didn't I?
Actually, the thing is with the defense here, this was a lot harder to do than the offense. The offense, it was like there were like 3 guys you felt like you had to have on there, and then there was like 4 guys that you were deciding amongst the other 2 spots.
Yeah.
And there really wasn't that much that you were going to do as far as moving people around or whatever. Defense, though, there's some guys you have to have on there, but then after those top 3 that I think you have to have on there, there's like 8 guys competing for those last 2 spots, and all have a legit claim to it. And so, yeah, there's a lot to think about here, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discussion. And your willingness to go honorable mention, I feel like it's a cop-out, because that means you can feel better about leaving people off the list.
Yes, that's right, Keith. That's exactly what it is. It's a cop-out. I would argue, I'm like I said for the offensive side, I'm providing additional content that our listeners want. So I'm actually really just providing a service, and you can't stop talking. So even if I mention a player, you're going to want to also talk about them. And it's all right.
Right. I went first last time. You start this time. Who is your number 5?
Well, you said it was hard. It was hard to do the list. I think it is hard because this is a fun list. I mean, this is a fun defense. Mike Macdonald comes in, right? We kind of know what we're going to get with him. He's going to be a defensive-minded coach, but is he going to be successful? I think last year he proved that he's going to be successful. And it wasn't even his players. Like, he just took a group of players that he inherited, and he made them into, by week 9 and on, made them into a top 5 unit, which is extremely impressive. And and they're running back the entire same defense this year, minus 1 player who we've already talked about, that really didn't have a huge impact on this team. And you add Emanwari, you add DeMarcus Lawrence, and a few others, and it just becomes, I think, something you can build on. So you're taking a top 5 defense and building on it in the next season, and we can talk about that a little bit, but it's going to be fun. My number 5 guy is a guy that's an older, established veteran that returns again this year. They give him another deal, Jarran Reed. I think he's got a super important role in this defense, kind of almost an outsized role in a sense, in that he works there in conjunction with Byron Murphy. A lot of times they share the same, 3-tech role. So they kind of come in and out and sub for each other. Sometimes they're on the field together. That's the nice thing about Mike Macdonald, is he's interchangeable and multiple, and he can move guys around. And those are 2 guys that are really important. And Jarran Reed is one of the key cogs in there, especially since they don't have a true nose tackle, other than, I forget his name right now. Sorry.
Jonathan Hankins
that we brought back. So without that in there, he's asked to do a lot. He's asked to be the 0-tech, the 1-tech, the 3-tech. Sometimes he even moves out to the 5. And so he's a really nice chess piece to have. Savvy veteran, great locker room guy, leader on that defensive line. So that was a pretty easy choice as far as on the difficulty scale, because he's a guy that deserves to be there.
Yeah, for him, he was a really difficult choice because he was like one of the last guys left off my list. And honestly, it had more to do with the fact that I think he's older and gonna, you know, his play is gonna start to decline, and he's not gonna be as big of an impact guy as he has in the past. But that's gonna be okay because you're gonna see my number 5 step up and do more, and that would be Byron Murphy.
He
And
was
so
my first honorable mention, number 6 guy.
yeah, so and Reed was my number 6 guy. So I went with the younger player. I think he's got the upside to be a tremendous impact player this year. And I think you're going to see a lot more of him and a little bit less of Jerron Reed in the rotation simply just because of age. And I'm okay with that because I think Murphy's going to be fantastic this year.
Well, I mean, Murphy does have the opportunity to be the better player at this stage. Younger, faster, stronger. Came off a terrific college career, and he does have that opportunity. I hope you're right, man. I hope you're right that he's going to step up, that he's going to have this leap in year 2. I was watching him in practice the other day on some film that Seahawks.com released. And gosh, his legs are just tree trunks. I mean, who was that? Who was that running back from Houston a long time ago? That just had tree trunks for legs. Big time running back in the NFL. Anyway,
from a long time ago.
Buzz Phillips used to be his coach.
So we're talking about the Houston Oilers days.
Yes, Oilers.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I can't. I'm drawing a blank right now, but one of the best running backs ever in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
And so I think he's definitely going to have the opportunity. He needs to go get it. Like nothing is going to be handed to him. We've already got Jerron Reed. Coach believes in Reed. He likes Reed. He likes his leadership qualities. Byron Murphy's going to have to take that job, and I hope he has that attitude. It certainly helps to have a coach like Mike Macdonald. I think Mike Macdonald, one of his underrated qualities is identifying the way the players need to be communicated to and drawing them out in a way that accentuates their strengths and gives them the best opportunity to be successful. I hope that he can do that with Byron Murphy because Byron Murphy, and I will say this too, in Byron Murphy's defense, he plays a position where it's not going to be a guy that loads up the stats. He's going to be a guy that does all the dirty work that allows other guys to build up all the stats. So I think he's a great guy, a great player, and he's right outside my top 5 only because the strength of this defense is so strong. We have other players that really deserve to be there too.
Yeah. All right, your number 4.
My number 4 is a player that joined the team halfway through the season last year and made a huge impact on the efficiency of how this defense played together and really enabled them to successfully make that huge leap last year in the middle of the season, Ernest Jones. And I'm glad they re-signed him at almost any cost. And it was actually a pretty decent team-friendly deal when we did. But he's the key cog in this defense. Like he's the green dot. He's the guy that calls the plays. He gets everyone organized. He does his job. The team trusts him. Other players trust him to make sure that he's, in the right spot, right time, all that stuff. He's solid in almost every area, but not great at any one thing. But he's the glue guy. He's the guy that brings it all together and makes everything else work. Ernest Jones.
Yeah. I can't say anything negative about him. I've got him significantly higher on my list. And we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, just a guy that showed his importance just by showing up, because this defense was awful before he got here, and they were really damn good after he got here.
Who's ranked higher than him from ESPN? ESPN just put out its off the ball linebacker rankings. Ernest Jones is like way down, like 18 or 22 or something like that. Terrell Dodson is number 7. No, I'm not kidding.
Tyrell
I'm not
Dodson
kidding.
was not good and got straight up just cut, because they traded for Jones, and the
Mhm.
defense got massively better. So whoever put that together, like, that's idiotic.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
it just is.
Okay. So who was your I'm confused now. Did we talk about somebody yet?
No, we're
Your number
on,
4?
my we're but you're supposed to be going first.
Oh,
So we did Jerron Reed and then
yeah.
Byron Murphy, and now it's your
Yeah.
turn.
Okay.
Oh, no,
So mine
You did Ernest Jones, that's right, that's where
yes,
we ended up.
yes,
Okay,
yes. So I
um,
can do number 3 or you can go.
I'll go with my number 4, and I think this one's gonna be a little bit of a surprise for you, but it's gonna be Riq Woolen, um,
That is
cornerback,
a little bit of a surprise for me. I did have him on my kind of short list, but didn't make my top 5.
um, guy who is, um I think he's undervalued by Seahawks fans because he's been up and down a
It's
little
true.
bit, but the truth is, I think a lot of that is because he was so good as a rookie. It's so surprising that everyone just expects him to be perfect, and he's not, but he is good and was a major contributor when the defense became really good last year, was one of the reasons why. Can shut down, half the field, can shut down, um, the big, tall, fast wide receivers that, uh, teams have that, in order to really put pressure on a defense. Now you just stick Reek on him, and you're fine. And, um, yeah, we'd like him to be a little more physical, and we'd like him to come up and do a little better tackling and stuff in the run game. But while those things are part of his job, his main part of his job is coverage and getting back and, um, not getting beat. And he does that really well. And I think that when you look at the overall in the course of defense, having a guy like him, on one side frees up, um, Spoon to do a lot more fun things. And if you didn't have Reek over there and you needed stability at one of the cornerback spots, you'd have to leave Spoon on the outside. Um, and I think that would be a waste of all Spoon's talents. So, um, yeah, Reek Woolen.
So, yes. I agree in part with most of what you said. But I would say can cover um big and tall wide receivers at times. Can shut down a side of a field at times. Can be physical at times, can tackle at certain times. I just want him to be more consistent. Like, and if he's not going to be physical, that's fine. There's certain cornerbacks that don't need to be physical, but he needs to be a good tackler. He needs to wrap up. He needs to be able to increase his missed tackle rate or make it go down, I should say, from, where he's at to half of that, I think. And I think the expectation comes from his size. Like he's 6'2", 6'3", 215.
Mhm.
He's a
220.
guy that you expect to be physical. He's a guy that you expect with his reach to be a guy that shuts down more because and he's got that makeup speed. So all the things considered, you kind of want him to use that more often and be more dominant. That's just me. Maybe it's not fair. I think he's a fine player. Had 15 pass defenses last year. He had 3 interceptions. He's a guy that you can put on the side of the field. But we also talked in the offseason about potentially moving off of Woolen as a trade piece, or that maybe we could upgrade that side, or
Only
that's
if
sort
you
of a
end
talk.
that
And
was only if, like, the draft fell in a way that a top cornerback, um,
fair,
so
no fair,
someone
right?
on someone who you'd have on a rookie deal,
Yes,
for salary
that's
cap
fair
reasons fell to you. You're not moving off a guy that has been a Pro Bowler.
and cheap.
Um, yeah, and, like,
I agree.
um and I think when you look at it, he's a guy that yeah, at times, he's played through a bunch of injuries too. And because they didn't really have anyone else, they didn't have the luxury of letting him sit. They had to go out there um, and say, "Here, go play hurt." And he stepped up and did it. And you're right. I think we would all like him to be a little bit more physical and tackle better and those kind of things. But I think that's also, if you're looking at like what standard are we holding him to, right? Holding him to a Richard Sherman standpoint's not fair to most cornerbacks. Um, and I think back to the one of the greatest cornerbacks of all time would be Deion Sanders, and he sucked at tackling. He hated tackling. He didn't want to tackle anything. He wanted to cover. He wanted to go after the ball, but he didn't want to tackle anything. And he's still considered one of the greatest of all time. So I think we need to, possibly just take a step back and relook at how good Woolen has been when we've needed him to be.
Everything that you said is fair.
Of course it is. I said it.
I just think that there's 5 players that I like a little better in this defense than Woolen, but Woolen's, for me, still has a little bit of room to grow and to be the player. I think, especially on the tackling stuff. Now, for the coverage stuff, I think I'm okay. Like where we're at, I would like to have him give up a few less big plays. I think he gave up like 7 touchdowns last year. Technically, he may have not been the accurate culprit, but he was in the vicinity of a lot of those, and I want him to clean that up a little bit. And I think, and the issue for me is he has that ability, and I think you've heard it from other people, and also people on the coaching staff. Even Mike McDonald will say, "We want Riq Woolen to play every down, to be there for every play, and so on and so forth." So I think there are a few little lapses now and again, and just clean that up and clean up the tackling thing. And you got a great player. Like he's definitely not, the weak spot on the defense by any means. And it's, and I think it will really help him this year being in just a top 5 defense where everybody has their responsibilities. Nick Manwari comes in and helps so that he's got all he has to worry about is his guy. My next guy is in the defensive backfield as well. Julian Love. I think Julian Love has a very, very, very big responsibility in this defense. And I think Mike McDonald loves him and his ability to play all over the place and comes up and really does a great job tackling. He's great in coverage. The other players trust him. He kind of calls the back end of the defense for the team, and just an all around solid borderline Pro Bowl, if not Pro Bowl player at that spot. And I think he is freed up a little bit now with the addition of Nick Manwari to really be free on the back end to play. Although he is very good in the box, I think Nick Manwari is going to get those snaps now, and Julian Love's going to be able to play back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he is the guy that was just left off my list, because I think he is a guy that is going to slowly find that he doesn't have a position. He was the starting, or he was he was the free safety. He was the guy that they had in the back end. And when things didn't really work on the defense last year and Kobe Bryant was showing that he could be the guy in the back end, they moved him up and had him play in the box. And he's a good box safety, but he's not a great box safety. His value is in his versatility and his ability to do just
That's
about
absolutely
everything.
True.
But he doesn't do either exceptionally well. And I think that Enamori has the ceiling to be exceptional as a box
I
safety.
agree with that.
And Kobe Bryant outplayed him as a free safety. So while he's really good, and you're right, borderline Pro Bowler, right? Kind of at that level. I guess this ranking should have been for this year and not just overall, but I felt like it feels like his time with Seattle might be coming to an end soon because do they have a position for him?
I think they do, in that Mike McDonald is so diverse and demands that all his players be able to move around and so forth. And he's a great player like that. He's like a sixth man on a basketball team. He's a guy that comes in and kind of fills a bunch of roles. I think, the guy that's going to lose snaps in his place would be Josh Jobe, and except for the outside boundary type stuff. And I was thinking if we got a guy like Rasul Douglas or even Griffin, that would allow even better opportunities for Jobe to kind of move into a fourth corner role. But we'll see. But yeah, Julian Love, I don't know. I mean, I could see leaving him off the list in lieu of Byron Murphy, right? But yeah, solid player though.
No, absolutely solid player. Guy that deserves consideration for it. I just think that he, I guess on our top 5 came in at number 7 for me. So yeah, there's that. So we're on number 3, right?
Yes.
I lose track of where we are. My number 3 is a guy that I think is generally underrated, not just in Seattle, but across the league. And that would be Boye Mafe. Boye Mafe is a guy that gets after the quarterback well. He covers well. He sets the edge well against the run. He does everything you want from an outside linebacker in a 3-4 and does all of the things at a high level. And he just doesn't get the credit for being as good as he is because he doesn't have that gaudy sack total. But he partly doesn't have that gaudy sack total because they don't bring him all the time. They have him drop back and do other things. And also because he does a lot of chasing people into sacks that other people get. He chased quarterbacks into they step up into the pocket to get crushed by the defensive lineman because Boye Mafe pushed them there. And so yeah, there's my my number 3 player. Just like I said, a guy that I think is vastly underrated.
Well, speaking of underrated, he was my 7th player.
Wow.
On this list, and the reason for that is just the list is loaded. You've got a lot of good players to consider. I had him right behind Byron Murphy. I think that he's got the potential to elevate on that list. And we'll see how it goes this year in this defense. I wish we had a true nose tackle because I think he could benefit the most from that. Byron Murphy and Duron Reed can definitely fill that spot, but I'd like to see that to help those edge guys a little bit more. But yeah, he's a good player. 7 sacks last year. I think he could get to 10. If he does, he'd probably be higher on my list. Solid in all aspects. Contract year, so he's got a lot to play for, and we'll find out. But I could see him on the list. Don't get me wrong. I just have a couple other players that I like better. Speaking of, my number 2 player on this defense is Devin Witherspoon. He could easily be number 1 in a lot of different lists, but he's my number 2. He's a great chess piece. He moves around a lot. I think last year he had an okay year. I thought, especially in the first half of the year when everything was kind of bad, I thought he did not excel in that environment. But the second half of the year, he came around just like everyone else did, had a really solid back end of the year. Phil's run fits excellent. He can blitz for you around the edge or stun up the middle. He's a guy that's in coverage, is sticky and physical, makes a lot of tackles behind the line of scrimmage, which shows that he's got the agility and the instincts that you would like out of that position. I think this year he's changing a little bit, potentially with the addition of Nick Emanwari, and the elevation of like Kobe Bryant, enables him to take more snaps on the outside and get Josh Jobe off the field as much, and allows him to play opposite of Woolen. And to me, that's a dream scenario if that happens. Now he's an excellent player around the line of scrimmage. It remains to be seen how he can excel on the boundary. And I think the coach that would only be part time. I mean, that's not like a full time thing. Coach definitely wants him close to the line of scrimmage somewhere so he can affect plays in that area. And he does an excellent job at that. Like he's a Pro Bowl, all pro level player close to the line of scrimmage. Can he be that on the outside with everyone else kind of stepping up so we don't drop off where he was? So anyway, number 2.
So I just figured out a problem. And this is what happens when you have a ranked list of things and you put a lot of names on there, but you don't actually number them. You just have them there in the right order. Is that I started at the wrong spot. And
Oh,
I have 3 names left for my top 2.
okay.
Um,
Who was supposed to be 6?
Byron Murphy was supposed
Okay.
to be 6.
Yeah, he's my 6th guy.
And
Yeah.
then Reek Bullen was supposed to be 5. And yeah.
Okay.
So we got off a little bit. Boya Mafe was 4. 3 was supposed to be Ernest Jones.
Yeah. And he was my 4.
Which we already talked about. And now we're to 2. So screwed up that a little bit. But
it's okay.
My number 2 was Leonard Williams.
Interesting.
Absolutely freaking dominant player up front. I don't even think it's arguable, had his best year as a pro, and he's been a really good pro last year. Just straight up dominated in all phases last year and was a huge part of the turnaround in Seattle's defense and showed why they paid him all that money. And at the end of the day, I can't say anything negative. And you're going to ask me why he's my number 2, but you've noticed the name that I've left off. I'm sure. And so, yeah, Leonard Williams is going to be your number 1 because he's the only name that's
makes sense. Yes.
possible that makes sense that you haven't said. So yeah, he's my number 2. He's your number 1.
For all the reasons that you said, plus, just solid player, solid leader, gives you everything you want out of the position. He's, as far as a defensive tackle goes, he's top 3 in the NFL as far as advanced stats are concerned. And he's the best player on this defense for me. And I put him there above Devin Witherspoon, just because Devin Witherspoon, I think, still has room to grow, and Leonard Williams is already there. And in fact, he's probably, he's on the other side of 30. And I think he deserves his due. He's been in the league a long time, and he's Seattle's best player right now. I think Devin Witherspoon is Seattle's player for the future and all of that. But today, Williams is it for me. And I got to give him credit for that 92-yard interception return, highlight of the year in 2024.
Absolutely. He deserves it for that. So I have Devin Witherspoon as my number 1 player. And the reason, all the things that you said when you were talking about him, he's at your number 2, all there. Absolutely found fantastic player. Does all the little things well. The reason why I have him at number 1 is because of what he does on the sidelines. I watch him at practice and in games. He's firing people up. He's holding people accountable. He's going, if somebody screws something up, he's going over and talking to him about it. But he's not just yelling in their face and pissing them off. Like, he's leading. And he was doing that as a rookie. No, rookies don't do that, but he was. It was over there, and he was, talking, and he was building guys up and when they needed it, and just doing all the things that help make everybody better. And I value that so much. So to me, he is the most important person on the defense for that, because I think if he wasn't there, they'd lose that, and the entire defense would not be as good.
I know that one other person on this planet completely agrees with you. on everything you just said.
Would that be
And that's
Devin Witherspoon?
Mike McDonald, his boss, Mike
Yeah.
McDonald, because Mike McDonald values all of those things very much and loves to give Devin Witherspoon a few digs now and again, jokes with him, appreciates his work ethic, all the things that make him a special player, that elevate him from doing 95% of the things that you want a player to do to 105%. Like he's a guy that just does all the extra things to make himself better and make players around him better. So I agree with you that he's on this list high and deserving to be where you've got him for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting the guys that have not been mentioned though.
Yeah, there's a couple players that I had on my list that I considered, but no. And they're both players that just joined the team this year. One player is a veteran, the other player is a rookie.
Okay. Nick and Amwari would be one of them.
Yeah, we talked about Byron Murphy at 6. We talked about Boye Mafe already. We talked about Wallen. Those are the other players I had considered. Nick and Amwari comes in at number, what would it be, 9 for me, just on potential alone and the fit in the scheme and the way I know Mike McDonald's going to use him and how he's going to affect other players around him. He's a guy that's going to end up being twice the player that he is on day one by week 17. And the effect he's going to have and the importance of his ability to affect offenses, and offenses will need to account for him, and all that stuff will drastically change from day one to week 17 and then next year and so on and so forth. So he's a guy that will undoubtedly be on this list next year for me. And then my last guy was DeMarcus Lawrence, just because he adds an edge setting presence and a veteran presence to this roster that only Leonard Williams has had prior, and Jaron Reed. But he's another guy there that I think really adds to the room, adds that value, really good at defending the run. I think his days affecting the passer and getting upfield, while they'll still show up now and again, maybe hopefully in really important moments, I think more or less he's now a cleanup guy, which means that he's going to be hanging around the line of scrimmage. So anything that kind of comes his way, he's going to be able to get to and take down. But his addition to stopping the run for this defense is, I think, underrated.
Yeah. I left him off because I don't think he's going to have a huge role with this team. He's
only 31 though, right?
No, he's 34.
Is he 34? Okay.
I thought he was 34. I'm going to look it up.
I don't know. I just, yeah. Yeah, I can, and that's why he's off my list. He's literally number 10. So he's almost fallen off completely, but I think he's going to have a role.
He's 33 right now. So yeah, I mean, he's going to have a role and
if he stays healthy. Yeah.
And it's going to be an important role. But he's at a position that is loaded, right? We've got a lot of guys at outside linebacker, which is what he's going to play. And yeah, he's going to have a limited role because of the fact that Boye Mafe is there, and a guy that we haven't talked about yet, but is going to start over DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yes.
In Derek Hall.
Derek Hall.
There.
Oh, okay.
And
I thought Derek Hall and Boye Mafe would kind of be the same guys, and Nuwasu and Lawrence would be on one side.
I don't know. When Nuwasu was healthy at the end of last year, Hall and Mafe started opposite each other, and Nuwasu was the rotational piece. Now I know that he got healthy late in the year and missed it all, and they'd already kind of had that rotation going, and we'll see how it works out. But just going into this year, I kind of started him in that spot because Nuwasu can be great when he's healthy, but he hasn't been healthy now for a couple of years, a couple of very injured years. And so I'm going to want to limit his snap early on in the year. So,
The
but
one thing to monitor is those two guys, Nuoso and Lawrence, are guys that are susceptible to injury. Now, Lawrence has had a great career and been a solid workhorse kind of a guy up until last year, where he only played in 2 games.
mhm.
Prior to that, though, he's been in and ineffective. So we'll see. But that alone, right there, that edge stuff, gives credence to the idea that maybe we're not completely done there, as far as adding a piece that would make Mike McDonald breathe a little easier down the stretch. So I would, for me, look for potentially something before the trade deadline that would involve Noah Fant, or would involve Ken Walker or Charbonnet, or another piece that would bring back an edge player
Yeah. I
potentially.
mean, if one of those two guys that gets hurt, I could see it. But if ever, if they manage to stay healthy, because the team limits their snaps quite a bit and lets Mafe and Hall do the heavy lifting,
Yeah.
then could see them, going in a different direction if they are going to make a move. Um, Another guy that we have not mentioned, and therefore is not even in your top 10, is Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, I know.
And the
Right.
dude just freaking came on last year.
And fringy
And
Pro Bowl level, right?
I think he
Especially the
made
back 9 games.
didn't he make the Pro Bowl? I guess he was like an injury replacement, but that still counts. But yeah, like he played at a Pro Bowl level those last 9 games. Once he was inserted into the starting lineup, okay, it's the same time that Ernest Jones got inserted into the lineup, and Tyrese Knight, and um, other guys got healthy, but he he was part of that group that when they made changes mid-season, the defense went from being very bad to very good. And he played at a really high level. And he would have been what, your 11th player? So he's the
Yeah, he
last
would have
of
been
the
a guy that I would have considered for that. Yeah.
for the last of the starters, or Tyrese Knight would have, uh
Yeah. I
like
mean, that shows you how nice the roster's coming along.
yeah, the defensive side of the ball is really solid. And it's hard to look at um this is why I said this one was hard, because I wanted to give a guy like Kobe Bryant some props when we were doing this, because there was no expectation for him. He had been a corner and been not great. Had been a safety and been couldn't get on the field, and you could tell the kid has just been working his ass off, because when he came on, like, he was a different player. He was so competent and so confident in all of his movements and everything that he had to do, and making the right reads and the right calls. He was really, really good. And he deserves credit for that. He deserves recognition for that. And the fact that he's not even in your top 10 players on defense.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this defense is legit. It really is. The offense is a mess, but the
Well,
defense
I mean,
is
he wasn't
legit.
on your list. He wasn't on your list
He
either,
wasn't
right?
on my list either. I know. I know. And
So I have a
that's what
question for you.
that's my point. Yeah.
So I have a question for you. So we've done the offense and the defense top 5, but really we've mentioned 10 players on each side. Which of the bottom 5 players that we mentioned, or even a player we didn't even talk about, has the best opportunity to end the season as what we would all consider a top 5 player on offense or defense? What are a couple
Oh
players that
man.
you would put on that list of guys to watch?
Um I would go over to the offense. I think there's a lot of opportunity for movement there. Torrey Horton, um, the wide receiver, is probably going to have a very limited role the first 5 or 6 games, and you're going to see it become bigger and bigger, especially if there's an
So,
injury at the
yeah, I tell you what, if Cooper Cup is injured, that guy's going to have a big role.
is. Maybe Damian Martinez at running back over the other two running backs. Um,
If they decide that running back room is really loaded, and they end up keeping the 3 on the roster or whatever, and they've got George Holani on the practice squad, I could see a running back moved. Or, we
mhm.
talked about Noah Fant already, but there's some opportunities maybe to get a player back that that you need more than a third running back or whatever.
So a dark horse for a guy that we're not talking about and absolutely does not deserve consideration for this list right now, but might push his way onto it would be Christian Haynes
I totally was going to mention that.
at right guard, because he did nothing last year. He couldn't
Yeah,
get
if
on
he
the
ends up
field.
starting, this scheme is well suited for him.
It is. It's very much as well suited for him. And I think that with an offensive coordinator and offensive line coach that aren't going to do their best to ruin him the way they were doing last year, um, now he's got a scheme that works really well for him and actual competent offensive coaching staff. I could see him becoming the player we thought we were drafting.
So last year, we had an offensive coordinator in Ryan Grubb that had 0 years of experience. We had a offensive line coach in Huff that had 0 years of experience in the NFL. We're now going to an experienced play caller. We're going to a offensive line coach in Benton who has 33 years of experience
In the NFL.
in this scheme, in an outside zone scheme. And Dennison is the run game coordinator with 28 years of experience.
Yeah.
That's why we point to the coaching staff and the scheme as being really good areas of kind of built-in improvement over last year. It's like they know what they're doing. They've got experience. There's no correlation between last year's scheme and offensive coaching staff, except for Pete's, the pass game coordinator, to this year. So any expectations, like you can say, well, they were 28th last year, blah, 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 and they're going to be whatever. I would argue that you just kind of almost have to separate that completely and just look at this year and this potential with these players. And that's why it's so easy for me to go to my baseline for me is 15th. Like we can be the 15th best run blocking team or pass blocking. We can be the 15th at least best running team, yards after contact, third down conversions, all the things that define how you run the ball. I think that we start at that level because historically these guys have been involved in offenses that have had that success.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Haynes is going to greatly benefit from a new, just a brand new start with a new coach that's going to look at him with fresh eyes and give him all the opportunity he needs to take that job.
Yeah, and build him up rather than tear him down, which is, according to the reporting, what Huff was doing.
Oh, that was huge. Yes.
That Huff was just a mess as far as trying to work with Haynes. And even saw some former Seahawks offensive line players doing interviews and being like, what the hell? Like, as far as what was going on there. So, I think that there's a lot to say about that. I mean, I went back and I was looking at the coaching staff, and I was amazed at how many those two guys you mentioned there, like how far back they went in the Kubiak coaching tree, right? Which is really the Mike Shanahan, not Kyle Shanahan.
Yes, right.
Tree.
From Denver.
And and those guys coached with Alex Gibbs, who I mentioned in the offensive side of the show as the guy who developed the offensive scheme, the running scheme, and then coached with Gary Kubiak. And now they're coaching with Clint Kubiak. Like, these guys have been around. They know this stuff. They've seen it. There's nothing that they haven't seen. And I think it's going to pay off in huge ways for the Seahawks this year.
So there were two names that I would consider guys that have the opportunity to reach the top 5 on either side of the ball. One is Elijah Arroyo. He's a guy, especially if Noah Fant, they play the same spot. They're going to be used the same way. I know Noah Fant is under contract, and he's a guy. If we decided to keep him, I would be fine with that. If they moved off of him, it could be a $9 million ad back into the salary cap, or you could potentially flip him for a fifth round pick potentially to somebody that had a tight end go down in training camp. So that's one player I would consider. You'd mentioned like Damian Martinez. I think we already talked about Jalen Milroe, a guy that's peripheral. He wasn't on my list, even my honorable mention on offense, but he is a guy that could emerge. Like that you could seriously argue that he played so well in 2025, especially by the end of the year, that he's going to get an opportunity to compete for that starting spot in 2026 training camp. You would have to consider Jalen Milroe for that list. And then Nick Emenwari, obviously, is a guy that could elevate. One guy that we're not talking about at all, didn't even get mentioned on these shows, especially the defense, is Tyrese Knight. Like he played well last year as a rookie. I mean, and really only played half a season. He came on when Ernest Jones came on. Like a week later, he entered the starting lineup and things got better. Like he's part of that equation. And he's a guy that could still take that sophomore jump in this scheme. He'll play faster. He won't have to think about anything. He's already knows exactly where he's supposed to be. He can make other players around him better. He's going to be a guy that's going to play with Nick Emenwari a lot, as far as they're going to end up playing the same position in a way, especially on dime and nickel packages, where I think Emenwari is going to take his snaps. But nonetheless, I think Knight really is kind of one of the veterans on this team now. And I think he's got an opportunity to really kind of, along with maybe Kobe Bryant, has an opportunity to really have a bigger role than we're anticipating right now.
Yeah. And that's what I keep saying. Like I brought up Kobe Bryant, was like, this is a guy that people are sleeping on. And I don't think that's wise. As hard as we've seen him work for 3 years to get from where he was to where he is, like nobody works that hard and then suddenly stops. So he's still working. He's putting in the effort. He's doing all the things. I think he's going to take another step forward, and
because he knows his role. He finally has a role. It's defined. He's coming back to the same role. Like that's going to be the first time in his career. Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of nuts.
I'm here for it. Like I think like I said, I think he's going to you're going to see him take another step. And him taking another step puts him into as a definite Pro Bowl level player. So, yeah.
Yeah, smart, instinctive player who really, makes plays on the ball. I mean, he's caused fumbles. He's a great pass defense guy. He plays the ball in the air really well. All those things that you love out of that spot. Okay. That's it. It's quite a list. I mean, by the end of the show, we mentioned all 11 starters essentially.
On both sides of the ball.
I mean, to me, that's a great sign. Like that's a really nice, well-rounded roster that's ready to compete. Like I think Seattle's really being underrated this year. Not just homer type stuff. Like I think they should be looked at as a team that's ready to compete in the division, like right now. And then, that next goal is to get into the playoffs and then win a playoff game. And I think they're in play for all of that this year.
The Rams are going to be tough. And we'll see how that goes. See how healthy they can stay, because that's a problem with that roster. But yeah, I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Seahawks, and they shouldn't. And way too many people are in on the 49ers.
Do you realize that the 49ers are favored in 15 games, Keith?
15 out of 17 games right now. I know. And I went back and we did that show and we talked about it. And I went back and I re-looked over everything again. And I'm like, what the hell am I missing? What am I missing that everyone else is seeing that I'm not? And honestly, I don't get it.
They're favored in the same amount of games that the Kansas City Chiefs are favored.
Yeah.
There's only one team favored in all games, and that's the Buffalo Bills.
Mhm.
And that somewhat has to do with playing in the AFC East and and playing AFC South and so forth. But yeah, and Seahawks favored in 7 games. Like they
In
won 10 games last
7
year.
games. Yeah. The
And
four
they've improved.
they've added
Yes.
talent. Whereas the 49ers won 6 last year and hemorrhaged talent,
Did you see
in this
also
offseason.
where the latest quarterback ranking had Sam Darnold ranked 27th in the NFL?
Okay.
And that's why. That's why Seattle's getting, all the national kind of attention that they are for the wrong reason. Is everyone feels like Sam Darnold is going to fall on his face. We're now missing DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett's no longer on the team. Seattle's rebuilding. There's no nuance to that argument whatsoever. It's just those guys are missing. The guys we brought in are worse or less than that. So the whole thing is going to go down, which is they
They're
just
missing
haven't
the
done dig enough or
they're missing
dug deep enough.
the coaching staff change and how big that's going to be, and the fact that Geno Smith was not good last year. So the idea that Darnold's going to fall on his face, well, Geno kind of fell on his face all year. And so how's that different? They still won 10 games last year.
Yeah.
Um,
And the
they've
players
improved.
that we brought in fit the scheme better,
Mhm.
in my opinion. All right. That's it, man. Great shows. Thank you for having those conversations and letting me talk about all the extra players. And you talked about a bunch of extra players too. So come on.
It's true. I did. I just
I think you screwed up your list on purpose just so you could talk about
I could
6 players.
talk about an extra name, probably. Yeah, it's possible.
You didn't even number your players. Come on. Who does that?
No one. No, literally, because I had them ranked in reverse order, so that way I could just read down the list, and then I just kept putting names up above it, and I started at the wrong spot. Oh well, it happens.
Oh well. You can find Keith on Blue Sky at Myers NFL. You can find me at NWC Hawk. The show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform, YouTube, all that good stuff. So when we come back, our next episode will start a full series on all the position groups on the team leading up to the training camp at I think the 23rd, 24th of July. So until then, we'll have a full series on that. We'll start with the quarterback spot. And it's going to be a fun show. We'll talk about some, potential camp battles for each position group and really kind of sink in and dive in and figure out really where we're at as far as the strength of this roster and what, if we have what it takes this year to get over the hump, get into the playoffs, make some noise. Because that's what we all want. And I think we're there, or we're really, really close. And so it'll be a fun look for sure.
Cool.
All right, let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
Talk to you soon, Keith, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NWCHawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.